Sorry, I was muted. Can you see me? Sorry, I had to restart my laptop fast. Thank you, because my camera was not working. So I can now start the presentation. We can also wait 1 more minute to let people arrive. So let's see who's attending. Oh, lots of people. Hi, from all over the world. I see. Ah, cool. Start sharing the presentation. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Should we wait 1 more minute for people to arrive?
Yes, we have a high number of registration, so probably we need to wait a few seconds.
Okay, just a second. From where can people write in the chat from where they are attending from? Just for curiosity. Spain. India, Germany, Tunisia, France, Portugal. Oh, cool. Okay. Okay, so let's start. Because today it's a tough topic. It's medical device software. Poland. Thank you. So my goal today is not so much to talk about every possible things related to medical device software, but to discuss some constant misunderstanding that we see happening in the field, like really a question that have been asked over and over again, and that they mostly often originate from the same type of misunderstanding or the same type of problem. So our goal here was today to try to summarize these issues and understand and try to convey the reason why there is this issue. Okay? So it's a sort of this high level overview, because as you see here, change now here. So on the definition of medical device is not particularly specific in the MDR or IPDR documentation. So MDR essentially says that software is also a type of medical device, and the more specific definition of medical device software that are also available in the guidance, they are just a sort of rephrasing of the definition of medical device itself. So they say it's a software that satisfies that leads to an intended purpose either alone or in combination, which is sort of the same rephrasing. So what I wanted to do today is focus, first of all, not on all possible medical device software, those inside device and so on, but really this software that are that are aimed to be certified as alone. So there is let's say a manufacturer. Typically, it's a manufacturer of an app or some sort of algorithm that should be plugged in somewhere, who aims to sell this as a standalone product that should be certified. Okay, this is the situation that I'm thinking about, and for this specific situation, I would like to highlight 3 common misunderstandings that we regularly see happening in the field, like really many times. So especially in this phase where there are so many AI devices that are being brought to the market, so the software itself is gaining so much relevance. And really, especially with AI devices, we get confronted with the same exact scenario almost all the time, to the point that sometimes we can really sort of predict the questions that the clients come with, because we know already that they are likely gonna follow a certain pathway, and this pathway comes from misunderstanding what the view of the notified bodies is when they deal with the software, compared to the view that maybe the manufacturer has when they are developing the software. Because that is the point. It's that when the manufacturer think of their software medical device, they really focus on the software, so on the actual code. I don't know how to say it, or on the executable. So really, the piece of software itself, and for them, that is essentially the product. But that's not the view that a reviewer of a notified body has. So remember that any medical device is not just the device itself, even when it's physical. So even when it's an object, it is never just the object itself, but it's the object associated with all the information that you give on it. Okay, and this is often forgotten for physical devices, but it's even more likely to be forgotten for devices that are essentially concepts like it is software. No? So when a notified body thinks of a medical device software, they think at least about something like this. So yeah, I'm not aiming to present all the elements that are relevant for medical device software, but so really the core one that are common to most of this type of applications or this type of apps. So if you see, there are like two sort of cycles, two sort of groups. Okay, the first, I don't know if you can see also my mouse. Do you see when I
yes, we can follow the mouse.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the very prominent element in the for this kind of standalone software is the user. And here, a first very important point, that is that the patient can be also one of the users. Okay, and with we struggle very much to make this concept clear, that one does not have to think of the roles as physical person, but as roles. So one can imagine like the patient being someone like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, having the two personalities. In certain moments, it is the patient. In certain moment, it is the user. And there is not even sometimes an exact time discernibility between the two roles. So it could be that the two things happen at the same time or constantly intermittently. But the idea is the patient, the person that is also a patient, is a user in the moment they are operating the device, and they are the patient in the moment they are getting the benefit or the clinical or the medical effect of the device. No? And this can be extremely confusing, particularly for medical devices. Sorry, for software devices, because software devices, as we will also see more clearly later, they don't operate directly on the patients, but they operate on the data that you feed from the patient. So usually there's the user who fits in. Again, this user can be the patient him or herself, and they fit in this patient data into the software, and they do it through some interface that it's typically a third-party interface. And that can be a smartwatch, mobile, a smartphone. It can be the computer, the workstation, or some other existing medical device that is available at a hospital, for example. So this information is input in this patient data is input into the devices, and it the software provides some output that is displayed in some way through these devices. And so this symbol here is to mean some sort of user interface. Okay, it could be something displayed on the monitor. It could also be just lights lighting up. Okay, so there must be some form of communication to the user. The user gets this information from the user interface and acts on the patient. Okay, to implement the medical purpose. And so here what we are showing is the patient in terms of patient, so who's getting the medical effect of the device. And what we also consider on the background is this intended environment. So where this whole thing is going to happen. It could be a hospital, it could be a home setting, it could be a mix of it, because it could be a software through which the patient seen as user transmit information to a doctor in a hospital, who then takes decision and sends them back to the patient at home. Okay, so these are the two main circles, and so the let's say the user one and the patient related one. Okay, so I wanted to make this element clear before we start. And now my goal was to start analyzing the different let's say misunderstanding that arise because of this of this structure. Is it okay, or are there questions on this on this diagram? One disclaimer: so there are also hardware medical devices that can act with the information taken from the patient and so on. So I'm not saying that this diagram here only applies to medical device software, but it's very typical. It's very typical of this kind of medical apps, AI products, and so on, wearable products, wearable medical device software, and so on. Is there any question here? I hope it's clear, because this is really important for understanding anything that comes afterwards. No question. Okay. So let's start with the first misunderstanding, which is probably the one that we encounter the most when dealing with manufacture of AI software. This is really like of diagnostic, let's say not just AI, but so medical device software aimed to diagnostic, which is this is in this case it's really a typical problem. With this, I don't want to restrict what I'm saying here only to software for diagnosis. You can imagine that there are also apps, all the DIGAs, the PECAN, that also implement therapies. You know, you can implement a physiotherapy program on a mobile phone. But this problem arises in particular with this with the diagnostic software, and because many of these AI innovations, they are the aim at diagnosing, detecting tumors faster or other issues, then we encounter it there all the time. And so the problem is that, as I said, I've highlighted it here. So there is this prominent role of the patient data in for this type of devices. So this software does not operate directly on the patient, but it operates on the data that are input about the patient, either directly through a screen or by reading some patient records and so on. And if you think of it, this data, they can be considered like a sample of the patient. Okay, and you can really imagine of replacing this sample like with a in vitro diagnostic sample that you take from a patient, like a urine or some biopsy. Okay, and the problem with this is that it leads to a similar type of misunderstanding that we also see with in vitro diagnostic devices. That is, because there is this prominent element of the sample of the data, the manufacturer sorry, one comment here. This parallel between between this medical device software And in vitro diagnostic is also highlighted in this MDCG 2021, where they introduced they put this emphasis on the validation of the technical performance in parallel to the analytical performance of the IVDRs. Okay, so the difference is that the analytical performance is, as defined here, is really typical of the IVDRs, whether they are software products or not. And here there's this emphasis on the technical performance in terms of reliability and accuracy. It's really specific for the medical device software. You don't encounter it so much for other type of medical devices. Huh? So just to emphasize that also this guidance tends to see a bit this type of medical device application almost as if they were in vitro diagnostic devices, to emphasize this view. But the problem with this point is that manufacturers also often tend to forget the patient in this circle. So the focus is on the data, and the idea is, okay, if I can access data, I can somehow fully test the device, and this is a problem because it's actually not true. If you have access to the data, you can analyze how reproducible your results are. You can analyze what the sensitivity and specificity of your device are. To do this, you don't need to have a patient available. You can use the so-called leftovers, what IVD calls leftovers, but in this case would be just data that are available from patients. Okay, and you don't even need to collect those data specifically from your device. Those data might be available in hospitals already, in records, in praxis, and it's very tempting, to go and get this data and then perform this calculation on this data, which is perfectly fine, but it's not the end of the story. That's the problem. So in a clinical development plan, that would be definitely one of the points of the clinical development plan. You want to test the technical performance of your device. You want to know what the sensitivity and specificity of your diagnosis is, but that's not the end of the story. Okay. The problem is that instead, the manufacturer gets the feeling, I've done something, a step toward clinical, and I stop there. And in this, they forget the second cycle, which is the cycle related to the patient. And one other problem with this, which is also a bit related to the last point that we're going to touch, is that not all these medical device software have necessarily a clinical benefit. They often focus on the performance. So the feeling is, if I show my performance, if I show my technical performance, I'm done. Okay, but the problem is that while even if you don't have a clinical benefit or a specific clinical performance, you still need to show the clinical safety of your device. Okay, and to show the clinical safety of your device, you need to have a patient. Practically, the cycle is you have to check that whatever is happening to the patient in terms of risk and side effect is not changing in the moment you insert your software medical device into the decision-making chain of a hospital or of a praxis or of the workflow of a doctor. And this can only be done in the moment you really see what happens to the patient when the user take whatever decision based on your software. And I hope that this point is clear, the difference between this point, because these two, I will go one more into this slide. These 2 points, the technical performance and the clinical validation, they're really different in quality and in many aspects. And if one forget, the problem is that if one skips this, it's very hard then to go to obtain the certificate. It might be possible eventually to postpone the collection of this clinical data maybe to a PMCF phase in certain conditions, but at a certain point with MDR, one has to get to this point where one is actually checking what's happening on the patient. And even if one is not claiming a specific health improvement, still there's no other way to check the clinical safety unless one really considers what happens to the patient when the software is used by the user. Is this point somehow clear. Just and to emphasize the difference between them, also the same guidance, really, the 2021, it emphasizes the difference between the two processes. So it really has to be clear that this technical performance and the clinical performance are really two distinct things that need to be tested in two different ways. Okay, so this would be the big misunderstanding number one, and this is really extremely common. If you have any question about it, please feel free to ask before we proceed to the other points, because we really see this happening all the times. No question? Okay. Then we can proceed to the second point, which is the fact that, as we said, these medical apps, they need a sort of support in order to get the input and to provide the output. Okay, so they rely on the specification of a hardware some form of hardware which is going to be used to input the patient data and to provide the output to the user. The point is that these interfaces, in most cases, they are not even produced by the manufacturer. Okay, so they are. It could be produced by Apple. It can be an Android device. It can be a wearable produced by some completely different company, and these devices, they don't even have to have necessarily a medical purpose themselves. I mean, the iPhone is not certified as a medical device. Okay, but it's the point is the manufacturer of the software in their technical documentation will have to specify exactly what is going to be this hardware platform on which the software is going to run and is going to be able to get this input and output. So this point here is not something that the manufacturer provides physically, but it's actually that the manufacturer provides only in terms of information. Okay, and this is a problem sometimes because there is a feeling, or let's say so, sometimes it is almost forgotten. So the idea is, okay, I can provide the software without providing this specification of the hardware, and that leads to problems. So one first step could be, I'm not specifying a certain type of device, but I'm specifying the parameters that should be satisfied by from the input and from the user interface. This is still possible it's possible to do it. It's not easy, and the problem with it is that you have, first of all, to be very precise in the way you characterize this input and output properties, and still remember, in the moment you will go and try to certify the device, the notified body will ask you for the validation of this device, and it's impossible to validate the device in any form unless you test it with one of the specification that you gave about the input and output. So whatever you're going to perform as tests is going to require you to make a decision of a worst case test scenario. So at a certain point, you will say, okay, I'm going to take this computer that implements this interface, and I'm going to test with it because I think that this is like the, let's say, what in the PSUR is called the leading device, the worst case that I can test with. But this is challenging. And the other problem is that in most cases, the manufacturer wish not even to specify this type of information. So what they have is really a software that they wish to sell to other companies typically, and they would like to certify this software as a product without saying how the output should look like, or without saying where this software exactly should run. And the problem is that that's where things become really complicated in terms of certification, because the medical device software will have to be validated. And the problem is, if you don't have these interfaces, you cannot validate this software. So what we suggest almost to customers there is that actually, why certifying this software alone? Essentially, they are almost providing a off-the-shelf software to be integrated in some other system. Why there should be a certification for it? Often there is the feeling that if this manufacturer is gonna get the certification for their software, then this increases the marketing potential, because they can guarantee the manufacturer of the final system that they will not have, for example, to clinically validate their algorithm for the diagnosis. And unfortunately, this is not true, because in the moment this software with unspecified interface is going to be integrated in a specific interface, then whoever has done the specific integration will be responsible also to validate the device, both clinically, also preclinically. So it's almost impossible for the manufacturer of the software only to validate this an unknown interface for a future customer. What can be done, maybe what one would try to attempt in terms of getting a certificate could be of claiming an Article 6110, since there is not maybe specific clinical benefit to the patient and so on. But the point is, why? When you are in this situation where you have essentially an algorithm that can do certain things, but you're not providing all the rest that is needed to make this algorithm work, you're essentially providing a solution. It's like a business-to-business framework, which doesn't make sense to certify. Essentially, you cannot bring this device onto the market directly. So there's no direct requirement and need to certify this from your side. And sometimes we struggle to make this point understood. And I hope that this overview clarifies that, because it's really, we see this also happening lots of time. And another condition that is somehow related to this is the case in which the software is not completely defined. And I will make an example about this. So we get contacted often from manufacturer of, let's say, platforms in which you have certain modules, like certain score calculators, or you can combine certain activities to create workflows. But these companies, they don't actually provide this workflow themselves. So the idea is that a hospital or a practice, a doctor, is going to take these tools and is going to put them together to create their own workflow. In this case, actually, what the company is providing is not even really medical device software. They are almost providing a programming environment that might be extremely intuitive, and but it's essentially a visual, but it's essentially a programming language. And in this case, it's also impossible to define a medical purpose of the device, because it depends really on what is going to be the specific purpose. You cannot even specify exactly what's going to be the final patient population, because the manufacturer of the platform doesn't even know what this is. So in this case, it's impossible to give a medical purpose to make the device fall under the definition of medical device and have it as a standalone software product. Again, sometimes there are reasons for marketing for which one says, okay, I really want to certify this, and one has to find a solution. But the idea is, if you have this does not automatically mean that you have to certify it. Essentially, it's like providing routines in Python that then are configured together by the manufacturer of the final product. It is the final manufacturer who will have to certify the final product and certify it. There is a question. Can you briefly, with respect to your previous slide, can you briefly specify what type of data is generally required for clinical performance, benefit, and safety of a medical device software? You mean this slide? Okay. Okay, so we're doing a jump back here. So on the difference between technical performance and clinical validation. So the idea is, imagine that you have a I'll make an example. You have a software for diagnosing a certain type of tumor. Okay. So what is typically from X-ray scans. Okay. So if you have to do the technical performance, what you are required to do is to collect X-ray scans, then apply your algorithm and compare the output of your algorithm to a gold standard. This is very similar to what is done for in vitro diagnostic, in which you say, okay, I want to detect something from a urine sample to see if I'm doing it right. I will find out what is the gold standard for doing that, and I will compare myself to this gold standard. Okay. And so that is what is mostly done by manufacturers. So they intuitively see that they have to do this step. So they realize that they have to collect these scans, and they typically they even do it before they develop their product. So they collect maybe big databases of X-ray scans, and they don't even have to do it actively. So they can create the so-called patient registries, where they make an agreement with a hospital and collect this X-ray scan. A comment about that afterwards, but and then they train let's say they split it into two parts. They train their neural network on the half of it, and then they check the technical performance on the second half, and then they can say, okay, I have a specificity of 97% and sensitivity of 98, and they think it's done. I've checked the clinical validity of my software, and that's not true. The point is that it's true. Probably you can also achieve this sensitivity and specificity on the field, but there are so many factors that you are not taking into account when you're doing this type of test, because essentially, imagine it's a hardware developer software developer at the desk, inputting the data, outputting the data, and maybe there is a doctor that is giving their opinion and against you, which you're checking it. This is a completely fake environment. This has nothing to do with the clinical practice, where you're going to have the doctor actually deciding what to do on the patient based on what you're telling them. Okay, so it's a very different thing. So there's no effect that your software can have for the patient in this setting. I don't know if this point is clear. So it could be that you have a great algorithm that detects the type of tumor really well, but let's say like this, your software, your user interface, it's a complete mess, or it provides the information at the wrong time or in the wrong format to the user. And despite the algorithm being fantastic, the user takes the wrong decision, and you only see that this is the wrong decision once you looked, for example, at the mortality of the patients after 6 months when your device is used and when your device is not used. And that is the clinical validation. Is it approximately clear? You can also unmute and yes, okay. Okay, this is a completely another question: how to evaluate and justify the quantity of data needed to train the AI and then to validate it, especially when the software is used to diagnose a pathology which concerns a small population. So for the sample size calculation, sorry for the other people, we're going a moment into another field, but for the sample size calculation, there are fixed methods for computing them. So if your goal is to show that your device can achieve a certain specificity and sensitivity, there are fixed rules that will that are let's say they are accepted. So there is a standardized way of doing it, according to which you will say, okay, if I want to show this level of specificity, then I have to recruit this many patients. Or, sorry, in this case, for the specificity and sensitivity, it's not about patients. I have to collect this many X-ray scans, this many with the pathology and this many without the pathology, for example. So it's computable according to given rules. And the same for the patient population. So if you say, if you want to check that your device does not significantly increase mortality, then you will probably research what is the standard mortality of patients in the field with that specific condition. And then based on this formulation of your statistical hypothesis, the non-difference, you can essentially compute how many patients you will need for the clinical study. So it's essentially the idea is you formulate an hypothesis in a comparison way, inferior, non-different, superior, and so on, equivalent. And based on that, you can say how many patients you're gonna need. Is that useful? No problem. Any other question? Okay. So let's get back to point 2. And so the goal of point 2 was really to say that it's not that just because you developed a score, okay, that and you have this function there, that then you have to go to the notified body and get it certified. It depends on what you want to do with this score. So if you're gonna say now this function that I created, you run it on your phone, you input the data and you get the output and so on, then you are dealing with the medical device software. But if it's something that you would like other medical device manufacturer to integrate in their software, then you don't necessarily need to certify that. Okay, and you might want to for some reason, for some market reason, but it's not necessarily a must. And so you always have to think with what I have specified. So not just with what I have developed, but with the information that I have given, would it be possible to actually use my software to achieve the medical purpose that I have defined? Okay, this is essentially the goal, and we sometimes struggle to get this concept out. So I also wanted to see if presenting like this, it becomes clear and it's comprehensible. So please also give feedback if it's not. Yes, that's gonna. So there is another question which says, what about indirect clinical benefit? Can software have indirect clinical benefit? Can you give some examples? And what clinical or preclinical evidence is needed for clinical benefit? And that's exactly the next point that I wanted to make. Sorry, before I just, I will get exactly to that now. Just a last point on this example also of the software that is not defined in terms of functionality, but like in a hospital should can configure to get their own workflow and their own specific medical purpose. So this is also foreseen in the MDR in Article 5. So with this idea that if the hospital now takes a bunch of Python function and put them together and creates their specific workflow, then it's their task. They don't have to certify it, but it's their task essentially to check that this thing works according to the general safety and performance requirements. Okay, and so this is foreseen. And once you have this apps that this platform where you can combine things, this is exactly one of these cases. And in this case, it's the hospital that practically has to take care of not certifying again, because they're not required to do that, but to show that this thing is safe and performing correctly. Okay. Now we get to the third point, exactly the one related to the benefit and to the performance. And here there's also lots of confusion sometimes in the field. That's due to another characteristic, let's say, of this type of software, That is the fact that the information, so that the effect of this software is through information that is provided by means of some interface to the user. Okay, it's not like, you know, if you have the classic medical device that they operate on the patient. So in the other medical device, there is always some form of direct or really physically on the patient, or indirect through fluids or gases contact to the patient. But medical device software, is kind of app, they don't have contact to the patient. Okay, and this is a difference that sometimes causes some problems, some misconceptions. Okay, and so what we often see is that the manufacturer will come and say, okay, I have a benefit. Actually, my benefit is that I speed up the diagnosis for the patient. Now, the problem is that this is not a benefit, a clinical benefit according to MDR. So for the MDR, whatever a clinical benefit, it's always something that happens at the patient, okay, at the patient level. So this does not mean that this claim, which is actually not a benefit claim but a performance claim, could not lead to a performance claim. Actually, you can imagine that you can provide the diagnosis so much faster that you can save more lives, for example. Saving more lives, so reducing the mortality, is actually a clinical benefit for the patient. But in many cases, manufacturers don't want to directly claim this clinical benefit. Okay, so they just want to stop at the performance level, which is perfectly fine, because it's not that every medical device must have a benefit claim, but every medical device must have a medical purpose. Okay, and sometimes we struggle with this making this different comprehensible. So the fact that the medical purpose and the claim are two different things. So take this example. If you have the diagnostic device that is aimed at diagnosing the tumors, and it allows the user to do it faster, okay, then you have a performance claim that the user is going to be faster, and you can show it even without a clinical investigation. You can show it at the preclinical level. But still, the intended purpose of the device has to be a medical purpose. And so the device is still intended to provide information that is used for the diagnosis. Okay, so in this case, you have to recognize this medical purpose, and you have to make it clear to the reviewer. But this does not mean that you have to show that your diagnosis is better, or that through the speeding up of the diagnosis, you necessarily lead to an effect on the patient. So your goal will be to show this performance claim, and you could show it through preclinical data, and you would still have a medical intended purpose that is related to diagnosis. And what we see is that because there is this emphasis on users and with this type of software, so the manufacturer would like to present only the part related to the user. But this either causes lots of confusion at the reviewer level, because they don't understand anymore what is the medical purpose of the device and what is the medical responsibility of the device, or it leads them to forget again this clinical part. Because the problem is that, yes, you can show this performance claim using preclinical data. You could have X-rays, like a big database of X-rays. You put a user to perform their diagnosis based on the output of your device and without the output of your device, and you can show them that it works faster. You can also show that compare this to a gold standard and show that this does not decrease sensitivity and specificity. But the final verification of safety can really only be done on the field with the patient. Again, it might be that the sensitivity and specificity play such a prominent role for your device that essentially that you must still convince the notified body to collect this data in the post-market phase. But at a certain point through MDR, you are requested to check these safety parameters at the patient level on the field. Okay, I don't know if this answers the question about the indirect and the direct benefit. So the MDR does not have the definition of indirect clinical benefit. There is the clinical benefit. This is more of a terminology that has taken place on this, because again, you can say if I speed up performance indirectly, I could save life. Okay, but if you want to have this claim, I'm gonna save life, the MDR requires you to show it. So the reviewer will not accept that one just mention it without having it, because in the moment you have the benefit claims, these benefit claims, let's say, takes almost a priority over whatever performance claim you will have, and the focus of the clinical review will be automatically moved there. But you don't need to claim that. Okay, you can also just have a non-clinical benefit, a performance claim, and that's also enough for getting certification. Not only, it might even make the certification process even easier. So it's super important to be clear on this point, because if you clarify to the reviewer that your only goal is to achieve a certain medical performance, somehow you are scaling down the requirements of what you need to present. So it's probably going to make your life easier. Obviously, at the same time, probably you're making your marketing less appealing, because you cannot promise big things on the patient. But sometimes it's a very good strategy to be able to get market access through some lower level claims, and then build on top of them with some additional data afterwards. So the essence is clarity is really fundamental for navigating this review process with the clinical reviewers. And if this is not automatically clear to the reviewers, then it's a problem. Okay. And this guidance, yes, talks about indirect clinical claims. That's fine, but it's not the clinical reviewer still will not consider in the moment you will declare a sort of benefit, which so also let's split the terminology. So there are clinical claims and there are clinical benefit. Okay, so there are some performance claims that are clinical, but they are not benefit. Let me think of an example. Wait a moment. You could. Wait, I had an example about this. So there are sometimes parameters that you can only measure clinically. So you achieve a clinical performance, but you don't achieve a clinical benefit. For example, okay, a classical thing for Annex 16, you can reduce wrinkles, okay, with some devices. Reducing wrinkles is a clinical performance, because it's something that you would test clinically. So you would perform the clinical procedure on a patient. You would ask them their opinion about whether the wrinkle has been reduced or not. But that's not the clinical benefit, because it's nothing to do with the health of the patient. So in that case, that's a clinical performance, and it's not a clinical benefit. Then there is the clinical benefit. The clinical benefit is really something that's related to the patient of the health, to the health of the patient, and that you measure directly from the patient. Okay. And if you are claiming an indirect clinical benefit, so the reviewer will essentially ask you to show this benefit. So this is part of it. No, having a clinical benefit is not mandatory. Actually, if you check Article 61.10, it's there's also a nice analysis about this from BSI. You can check there is a webinar from them. So you don't need to have a direct clinical benefit. So, but you need to have a performance, and you need to have a medical purpose. So that's two things you need: the medical purpose, and but you don't need to have the medical benefit. I don't know if this point is clear. So in this case, the software is intended for diagnosis, but the fact that the software is intended for the purpose does not mean that it's going to lead to a medical benefit. Okay. Is there any other question? Because essentially, this was my last slide. But just to recap the core message that we want to give is that, so specifying this type of information, it's really important. So making clarity on these points, it's not just, it's something that one should spend time on and should really should really spend time and make clarity, because if there is no clarity on this for the clinical reviewer, they will not understand anymore exactly what they should review in your case, and which type of data they should expect. And in the moment they don't have this clarity, there is a high chance that they are going to shoot randomly at a certain point, just because they have to try to make some clarity. And at that point, they might shoot in the wrong direction, and they could set on a rolling ball of confusion that then it's very hard to control. I see there's another question. Guide wires. So the point is, for this type of product like guide wires, you're going to use them in the context of a procedure. So what the benefit is going to be coming out of a procedure in which also the other devices are going to be working. So what is going to be important to specify about this type of devices is going to be exactly what is their technical performance. Then the benefit is gonna be created from the medical procedure in which many other things are going to be done, and many other devices are going to be used. Okay, but there is no need to specify this in indirect benefit, because your device alone in that case cannot lead to this benefit. So a whole lot of other things have to happen, and a whole lot of other devices have to happen in order to achieve the benefit. So the important thing that you have to show is that according to the state of the art, you can achieve a certain type of performance that has been shown to be the one that you need to perform that medical procedure. And in the moment you do that, then you are essentially done. So if the state of the art says, okay, these are the parameters that are important for this type of devices. Okay, in order to implement this more complicated medical procedure, you don't have necessarily to claim that you're gonna save lives. You can claim that your device is intended for therapeutic purposes for a specific type of problem, and your device achieved this specific performance. And then the benefit will be coming from the rest of the procedure. It doesn't have to be you directly promising the benefit. Okay, so there are some devices that have automatically the benefit specified in them. So all the devices that implement direct treatment, even for some software devices, imagine these treatment apps, you most likely are going to give a certain benefit. You can decrease pain, you can improve quality of life. Those are all the clinical benefit that are clinical benefit according to MDR. But you don't need to have that necessarily in order to go through certification. But you must have a medical purpose. And what I'm trying to say here is that sometimes for some configuration of the software devices, it is not possible to define a medical purpose, because things are there is missing information that does not allow to clarify what this medical purpose should be. Is that clear? And I see that there's another question. Wait, one at a time. I think I understood that initially the product can be marketed with only perform. No, this I didn't say. But no, sorry, no, with only performance claim, yes, but yes. So that can be done. Sorry, yes. So you can start having just performance claims, and you can in the future add clinical benefit claims. That's absolutely possible. But the important thing is that whatever you say about your marketing material has to be consistent with what you say in your claims and what with the data that you have collected. But without a direct indirect clinical benefit, how you can detect? Well, I mean, suppose that you have you specify that you can through your device you can implement a specific procedure, then you will have a state-of-the-art analysis that will show that this procedure is actually beneficial. Okay, so but you cannot guarantee for your device that this procedure can be performed. So you can only guarantee a part of this procedure. But in your benefit risk analysis, you can still analyze that if your device is used in the proper way, together with this other set of devices and doing certain other things, then this could allow to perform this procedure. And if this procedure can be performed correctly, then this outweighs the risk that you have quantified associated to the use of your device. So that's still, you can still do a benefit risk analysis, and you can still define all the criteria that you need, because actually doing the benefit risk analysis, it's almost like reversing the medal. So when you do the benefit risk analysis, the core part is defining the criteria that you need to have a positive benefit risk ratio. Okay, so what you do is you do the state-of-the-art analysis, and through the state-of-the-art analysis, you practically determine the criteria that you need to have a positive risk ratio, because the medical field has recognized that doing that procedure is beneficial for the patient. And most likely there is information related to what should be the performance in order for this procedure to be successful. So in the moment your device satisfies the acceptance criteria, your benefit ratio is positive through the state of the art. I don't know if this is clear. Will the recording be available? Let's see about it, because we have some concerns concerning also data protection. We have to see what comes out. This time we try to anonymize the attendee's name, but it's I'm not sure. From what I see from the screen, I'm not sure it worked. So let's see what how the output looks like, and we might think of making it available in LinkedIn or on YouTube. No problem. I hope it was useful, and if you have any question, just contact us. And okay, another question. But absolutely, yes, that's sorry. There's this question, but even without claiming clinical benefit, the clinical safety needs to be validated after clinical performance validation. Yes, that's the thing that we unfortunately sometimes struggle to make it clear, that even if you don't have a clinical benefit, this was what I was trying to explain in this slide, that even suppose that you don't have a clinical benefit, you don't have a clinical performance, but there is always the clinical safety that needs to be taken into account. And there is no other way to check clinical safety than to consider the entire complete chain that you have here with the user, patient, environment, device, interfaces, and everything. And that's the clinical validation. That's the final validation of all, in which you put all the pieces of the puzzle together and you check what happens to the patient. And there's no other way to check clinical safety than to have clinical data collected when you have everything. So in any case, as I said, at a certain point, one has to get to this clinical data step, even if one does not have a clinical benefit. Because remember, the benefits and the performance is just 50% of the medal. The other 50% is the safety. And to check, to demonstrate clinical safety, you need clinical data. Okay.
Hi, Caesar.
Hi.
While working on software medical devices, like what are the main points need to be considered for in terms of technical file and clinical evaluation report writing?
Okay, so this depends a lot on the specific device. It's really hard
Mhm.
to say. But let's say while through let's say for the technical documentation, all the verification part has been well established in, let's say, 20-25 years now. So there's with the introduction of 62304 and so on, there's been lots of there so there is a lot of collected experience. Let's say that this MDR, the clinical approach of the MDR is still relatively new. So usually what we see is that the verification part of the technical documentation is usually well done, and it's the software is has been tested correctly, so the things work. What we see that there is lots of problems is this initial actually point. So it's the intended purpose and the definition of claims. So we notice that there is lots of difficulty for the manufacturer to really narrow down exactly what the claims of the software is, because unlike the physical devices, there is lots of gray area where the software work. Okay, so also because their effect is so indirect to the patient. And so it's really hard sometimes to exactly nail where what the clinical benefit or the clinical performance should be. So the manufacturer tend to go to either two opposite points, which is the software does nothing or the software saves life, and often the truth is a bit in between. And that's also the thing that leads to most troubles with the reviewers, because when that is not clearly specified to the reviewer, they don't understand anymore what they are supposed to check, and then when there is confusion, they start to check randomly, and that's the worst condition. But I would say for this kind of software, really the important thing is to pay lots of attention at the beginning to formulate the purposes correctly and the claims really, really, really well, based on the state of the art.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Caesar. Thank you so much.
There are a couple of other questions. I don't know if it was yours. Will the safety validation in the entire procedure not also reveal the clinical performance? Absolutely. So, if your device is meant to be used in a certain procedure with 20 other devices, the idea is that to check their clinical safety, you will still use your device as intended. So with these other 20 devices, there's no way to achieve to check the final clinical benefit or safety without taking into account all this mess. I mean, sometimes it's really messy, and the challenge there is to try to identify the parameter that could really tell you something about the effect of your device. And typically, what one can try to do, let's suppose that it's really a situation where your device is used with 20 other things, okay? So what one could try to analyze is a comparison between the same setting with your device and the same setting either without your device or with a similar device, and to check that when your device is in the room, it doesn't suddenly increase all the safety outcomes in a significant way. So that could be the challenge when let's say when the device alone does not implement a procedure, okay? Because not all devices implement full procedures. They can just be part of it. I hope that answers the question. It is good to see more mention of clinical safety. Yes, unfortunately, that's also often forgotten. There is so much emphasis on the benefit and on the performance because they are related to marketing also, that the safety is forgotten. And then one gives it the technical documentation to the reviewers, and the reviewers says, "Nice, but where is the data?" And so that happens often. Anything else? Okay. Then I hope it was useful, and I wish you a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Caesar. Yeah,
No
have a
problem.
nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.